Now moving to topic mineral riches in the soil. We are talking about soil, which is an important resource that decides the diversity of life in an area. But first question which comes to our mind is, what is soil? And second is, how is it formed? Right. Now first of all, if we try to answer these questions, it's like we know earth, right, which has been taught to us since we are in class 1. The outermost layer of our earth is called crust. Okay, outermost layer we call it crust, and we know that there are minerals which are found in the earth's crust. Are these available to us? No, these are not available as such, but these are in a supply here. These are a variety of nutrients which are responsible to take up the life processes. But these minerals will not be available if these are bound up in these huge rocks, and we have to make them available. These are not available, but we have to make them available. And over long periods of time, thousands and millions of years, the rocks at or near the surface of the earth, at or near the surface of earth, is broken down by various physical, chemical, as well as biological processes. So, what is happening? We are talking about how soil is formed, right? Rocks are basically being broken down by various processes, and these are physical processes, chemical processes, and biological processes. What is the ultimate end? Formation of soil. Now we have to list up all the factors which are responsible for the formation of soil. Let's start with the sun. First of all, the sun. What happens? Sun heats up rocks, right? When? During the daytime. Then what happens? Due to heating up of the rocks during the daytime, these expand. And at night, rocks cool down. Then these contract. Okay. So since all parts of the rock do not expand and contract at the same time, since all parts do not expand and contract at the same time, which means it results in formation of cracks. Okay, formation of cracks. Ultimately, these huge rocks, these break up into smaller pieces, right? So what happens during the daytime? What happens during the night time? This expansion, contraction, and formation of cracks ultimately lead to smaller pieces. This is the role played by sun. Now moving up to water, the second one. What is the role played by water? We say it helps in the formation of soil in two ways. First is water could go into the cracks which are formed due to uneven heating of the sun. Due to uneven heating of the sun. We know cracks are formed then only. And if the water later on, it first enters into the cracks and then what happens? Freezes. Then what happens? It leads to widen up of the cracks. Widen up the cracks. And why? Because automatically the water on freezing will expand and will acquire more area. Therefore, it widen up the cracks. This is the first way out. The second way out is we say flowing water. What the flowing water does? Flowing water always wears away even hard rocks over long period of time. And it carries big and small particles. These go downstream and these rub against another rocks. Right, and what happens ultimately? This results into abrasions. This breaks down the rocks into further smaller particles. And these smaller particles will deposit further down the path. Soil is thus found in places far away from the parent rock. Okay, these smaller particles, these deposit further down its path far away from the parent rock. This is the role played by water. Now moving to wind. What is wind? Moving air is known as wind. So it's a process similar to the way in which water rubs against the rocks. Very similar to that. Strong winds does the same. These strong winds automatically will help in taking away or wearing away the rock particles. So we say these erode rocks down. It also carries smaller particles from one place to another. Ultimately, what happens? With the help of wind also, these deposits are found far away from the parent rock. Clear? Fourth is living organisms. What do living organisms do? They also influence the formation of soil. How? Lichens. Have you heard about lichens? Lichens that are basically always growing on the surface of rocks, bare rock or bark of a tree where there is no pollution. They are the true indicators of pollution. They always grow in an area where there is no pollution. So lichens, when they grow on the surface of rocks, while growing, they release certain chemical substances. chemical substances which powder down the rock. Powder down the rock surface. Then it will help in the formation of other plants like moss. These are small plants. These are bryophytes which grew. Moss and other bryophytes. These grew. These are able to grow on the surface now. Alright. Shows growth. And they cause rocks to further. These rocks will break up further. And finally, these leads to the formation of bigger cracks where the roots grow bigger, crack is forced bigger, and ultimately these rocks will break down into smaller particles. Clear? So this is the role played by all four: sun, water, wind, and living organisms. Now coming to what soil is composed of, means the composition of soil. See, it's a mixture, always. Why? Because it contains small particles of rock. Small particles of rock. And these are of different sizes. Then it contains bits of decayed living organisms. Clear? And these bits of decayed living organisms which are present on the topmost layer, these basically constitute humus, which is quite rich organic manure, considered organic and very rich for the formation and growth of plants. And we write it down, it's humus. Okay, it also contains various forms of microscopic life. Which is present. Clear? And the type of soil, it is always decided by the average size of the particles. Average size of particles which are present in the soil. Why? Because the quality of the soil is decided by the amount of humus and the microorganisms found in it. And the type of soil is always depending upon the average size of the particles which are there. Humus, it's a major factor. Why? Because it decides that what kind of soil structure will be available in this soil and to what extent is it helpful for the growth of a plant. We will mark it as a point that humus, major factor in deciding, it is a major factor in deciding the structure of a soil, because it has to support vegetation. Barren soil will not support vegetation, clay soil will not support vegetation, so it has to be a mixture of those average sized particles as well as humus and microorganisms in it. Then we say it causes the soil, because this humus, it causes the soil to become more porous and allows water and air to penetrate deep underground. Makes the soil porous and allow this water and air to penetrate deep underground. Okay. Then we talk about the mineral nutrients that are found in particular soil. It depends on the rock from where the soil is formed. No doubt we say it comes far away from the parent rock, but yes, the mineral nutrients that are present here will always decide the texture as well as the quality of the soil. They are found in a particular soil, depends on the rock from where it is formed. And the nutrient content, the amount of humus present in it, depth of the soil, then amount of water which it can retain, and the combination of microorganisms, it decides that which kind of plant will thrive on that soil. And the topmost layer, which is we call humus, in addition to the soil particles, it is called the topsoil. And the quality of topsoil is a very important factor that decides the biodiversity. We said no, that it decides biodiversity. What decides the biodiversity? The topmost layer of the soil. That means the humus and the living organisms in addition to the soil will decide the biodiversity in that area. Okay, now let's talk about these fertilizers, pesticides, their use, and how it can ruin the quality of soil. See, modern farming practices which involve the use of large amount of fertilizers and pesticides, and using them over a long period of time, these fertilizers as well as pesticides, large and longer durations of these will automatically kill the soil microorganisms. Kills soil microorganism. Why these microorganisms are important? Because they replenish the soil nutrients which are lost. So these fertilizers and pesticides, these are important. Why important? Because these decide that which supplement is to be added in the soil. But these, on the other hand, causing a major havoc to the soil. Why? Because these kill soil microorganisms and replenish the microorganisms which are required for the replenishing of soil nutrients. What kind of supplements do they provide? Supposingly our crop is not having adequate amount of phosphorus or any other element, magnesium in it, that has to be supplied particularly through fertilizers and pesticides. But when we always overuse the fertilizers and pesticides, then the havoc starts. Clear? Till date, farmers are using them, utilizing them only in need. But whenever we use all these and we depend on all these fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals for the growth of plants, then these are dangerous for the crop as well as for the growth of plants. Right? One is microorganisms. Secondly, who's the friend's farmer? Earthworm. Right? We call them instrumental in making the rich humus. Even these earthworms are in danger due to the excessive use of these fertilizers and pesticides. So, basically, fertile soil can quickly be turned barren if sustainable practices are not followed. What are those sustainable practices? If we keep on killing the diversity, the biodiversity of the soil, if we keep on killing keep on removing or keep on disturbing the topmost layer rich humus of the soil, where ultimately what are we doing? We are doing soil pollution. So what is soil pollution? If we deteriorate the quality of soil, that means removal of useful components from the soil, removal of useful components from the soil, as well as addition of other substances, addition of unwanted substances. What these substances do? These adversely affect soil health. So we say these affect the fertility of the soil. And ultimately, what happens? It kills the diversity. You are always happy in a comfortable environment. If that comfortable environment is not available, will you survive? Obviously, if I say the temperature will go beyond minus 10 degrees Celsius, or it may go up to 80 degrees Celsius, and our surviving range is in between, right? We can thrive in 40s only, 42, 43, 44. उससे ज़्यादा टेम्परेचर में हम भी सर्वाइव नहीं कर सकते, राइट? डीनेचुरेशन ऑफ डीएनए हो जाता है बच्चे, प्रोटीन्स की डीनेचुरेशन हो जाती है इफ़ वी get exposed to a higher temperature than the body temperature, and same way not in a lower range. So sustainable practices says that each and every microorganism requires a comfortable zone to survive. If we are not providing that, it kills the diversity. So which is an important factor in soil pollution as well. And the soil that we see today in place has been created over long and long periods of time. Why? Because we have discussed all the factors that have brought down the soil. And some of the factors that created the soil in the first place and brought the soil to that place may be responsible for the removal of the soil too. The fine particles of the soil may be carried away by flowing water, wind, right? That we have discussed, that water, wind played an important role, then sun, and then living organisms. See, if all the soil gets washed away and the rocks underneath are exposed, what will happen? We will definitely say that we have lost a valuable resource because very little will grow on the rock. Now nothing will grow on the rock. How can we study that? If we make the soil barren on the top of the rocks, what will happen? Automatically there is no vegetation. So here is an experiment based on that, and that experiment says that we have got two trees. Here this is one and this is another one. Okay, we have kept them little slanting, ऐसे slopey रखा है हमने उनको trees को. Fine. And we have filled them with soil. So first what we have entered in both the trays? Soil. Here what we have done? We have planted mustard, green gram or paddy in one of the tree. Supposingly in this one. This is A and this is B. I have planted mustard or paddy or anything. Maybe green gram. Basically we mean vegetation. And what are we doing? Here the second point says no vegetation. Number 3. I'm going to water both the trees regularly for few days. What am I adding now in number 3? Water regularly for few days. What will happen? The first tree is covered by a plant growth, and we have tilted both the trees and fixed them in that position. Once the plant growth is there, now I have given them a stand and I have fixed them in this slanting position. Both are tilted at the same angle. Now we are pouring equal amount of water gently on both the trees. That is more water. What am I doing? I am adding more water now. I am pouring more water after I give them a slant. Now we have to study the amount of soil that is carried out of the trees. Number 5. What we have to calculate? Amount of soil carried out from both the trees when we pour water. What do you observe? Study the amount of soil that carried out from both the trees. Is it same in both or is it different? Now, what am I going to do is, I am going to raise the level of water which is being poured. Supposingly, initially I am going to pour the water from this level. Now I am going to pour water from here, from this level, maybe from a 4 feet height or a 3 feet height. I am raising the level. Now I am going to raise the level also. I am going to increase the amount of water also, which is to be poured. Okay, I have raised the level also. I have multiplied the amount of water as well. What is observed? Is the amount of soil carried out of the trays is same? No. Obviously, more amount of soil is washed out in this. And as we are increasing the height, more amount of soil is washed out or carried out from this tray B. Why? Because there is no vegetation cover. Why there is more amount of soil that is washed out or carried out with heavy rains in slopy, hilly or mountain areas? It's only because of no vegetation cover. Here we have provided a vegetation cover, so it will stop. This soil will be bound because of the roots of the plants growing here. Here, if we are allowing water to that is, water is being raised, the height of the water is raised, and amount of water is allowed to get poured from these two trays. Same is the scenario in the rocks or in the mountain areas. Obviously, more amount of soil will get carried with the water in mountain regions compared to the normal areas. And this is a very important factor which plays an important role in soil erosion. This is called soil erosion. And roots of plants have an important role in preventing soil erosion. The large scale deforestation that is happening all over, no? It is destroying biodiversity. It is leading to soil erosion. And we know the topmost soil, it is basically the richest soil. And if it is removed quickly, which is happening in hilly areas, in mountainous areas, only because this is accelerated because of the height of the rain which is falling at a greater speed. And this vegetation cover, it also plays an important role in percolation of water into the deeper layers. If water is not retained only, what will percolate within the layers? Nothing. So this vegetation cover, it plays an important role in percolation of water as well. It is a big binder. This will not allow the topmost layer or the humus rich layer to be carried out easily with the water flow. Understood? This is about soil.